Welcome everybody, it's your boy, the Versace Stoner, with another episode of VSW.
These sons will beat you.
That's right, folks. Big news flash. Oh my God! VSW.
Brass hats know what time it is. Get up off of your seats and bow down to the king.
One of the greatest in this game and one of my favorite all-time people in this game. The Versace Stoner.
It's places like this. I started in a mill. I'm here still in a mill. I consider myself a mill wrestler.
Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner. We're here with another great episode of VSW Podcast. Tonight, we're back in the Kill City talking to one of its fiercest competitors. That is right, David Mercury. And we have him with us today. We're going to talk a little bit about his past, a little bit about what he did, and a little bit about his future. We're going to talk it all tonight here on the VSW Podcast. Thank you for coming on, David. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
So, we'll start briefly for the folks that don't know you. What got you into pro wrestling? Like, when did you start getting into it, into the business wrestling?
Oh man. Well, you know, a lot of people have aspirations when they're kids, becoming a professional wrestler. I was very fortunate to relocate from New London, Connecticut down to Tampa, Florida, into an area that's called Town and Country. It's part of the Bay Area. And fortunately, when we moved, I got to go to school with a kid whose dad was a wrestler. And slowly but surely, with hanging out with him and growing up, it just started to become something more and more that I wanted to pursue. And right out of high school, when I finished high school, I started with training in professional wrestling, and was very fortunate to have some people to provide their knowledge and me learn from. One very special one close to me is Steve Kern. He's a Florida legend, and I was very fortunate to train under him at the School of Hard Knocks with the assistant coach of Jimmy Del Rey that was also there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started training back in 01, 02, made my debut in 02, and been doing it ever since, man. Going on 22 years in November.
I'm trying to think. I'm bringing it back 02. Yeah, so I'm thinking, like, for the mainstream fans, you got, you know, the Attitude Era just is kind of rallied up. You got the Ruthless Aggression era coming out. Brock Lesnar running rampant. John Cena making his debuts. Everybody's kind of there. It's kind of funny. 2002, 2003 is kind of when I actually I stopped watching pro wrestling. I just got busy. Life just kind of the iconic, the same thing. I got out of high school. I had aspirations too. I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I loved it. You know, ever since I was a little kid watching, you know, King Kong Bundy and Hogan and Andre the Giant, all these larger than life characters. And then seeing, you know, the 90s, all the colorful characters, the fun, you know, Doink the Clowns and all this. And then the Attitude Era, seeing the Stone Colds and the Rock really got you, you know, wanting to be part of this. And my thing was I went in there and, you know, I was lucky. I lived close enough to the Killer Kowalski school. I went in there. Yeah, I went in there and
I have heard.
They basically laughed at me just because I'm 5'8". I'm not, at this time in wrestling, they wanted bigger people, more of stature, more height, more weight. 5'8", no, kid, you're not going to make it as a wrestler. Even if I train you, you're not going to go nowhere. Now, today it's different. You can be, you know, any size, and as long as you know what you're doing, you can go anywhere with it. But back then it was a little bit different. So I ended up going like the boxing route and started doing, you know, amateur boxing. But so around that 2002, 2003 period, I stopped kind of watching pro wrestling. Just got busy with life. And then I started watching again, like the teens, and then started getting into the indie scene. But, you know, going back and watching that time in wrestling. It's very exciting because it was such a transition time from, that hectic, chaotic, attitude era that, I was, a teenager in, to this more kind of, it's kind of what dictated today's, wrestling. It's more of that sport. It's more of that sports entertainment more than ever. You know what I'm saying? It's that next kind of level, that a progression that pro wrestling has followed. And, a lot of the independent scenes, a lot of the other scenes, they all kind of follow what WWE does, as far as kind of a little guideline. If they're doing something, if they're not doing it, well, maybe we shouldn't, either, or, or if they're doing it well, it's okay. That kind of thing. But yeah, definitely. So you got into 2002, around that time. Where'd you start wrestling? What promotion? Where'd you go?
Well, when I got my first opportunity to make my debut, it was in another little town not far from Tampa called Zephyr Hills. And it was at this place that ran shows every Friday inside a boxing ring, mind you,
Nice.
called Joe Bob's. And the promotion that ran out of Joe Bob's Bar and Grill was a promotion called NSW, New School Wrestling. And I made my debut for them, and not even slowly, man, right out of the get-go from there, I just started going all over Florida. Anywhere I could go that would book me, I was there. Definitely traveling around Florida for quite some time. Also making my way through being able to work for promotions back then. And you were right, talking about that era, 2001, 2002, I always referred to as, that buyout. And you were right. You're definitely right. You had to be a big man. So I was that guy that was going around trying to work every big man I could possibly work, just to get noticed and hopefully get somewhere with this industry, But it's been a hell of a ride from wrestling throughout Florida. I've gotten opportunities to, expand and go to the Northeast, wrestled through Maine and Jersey. Also did Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Where were you
making my way?
I mean, I'm from Mass myself. Where'd you wrestle out in Mass?
It was a promotion that primarily runs in Maine, but they did Lynn, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
And we did a show over there, which that was my very first time wrestling in a ring smaller than a 16x16. I actually wrestled in a 14x14 called a pony ring. And yeah, being 6 foot, you get tossed from one corner, your feet are definitely hitting the other. That was quite an experience on that show. Just got back from wrestling in Jersey for Shore Star Wrestling. Got to wrestle my old tag team partner who relocated up to Jersey just recently. And it was quite an experience, to say the least, about that show. Very, very interesting. But man, we've talked a lot about this wrestling, but we got to get out to the Power Hour, which is Kill City Cup. This was This was a very unique project that I got to be a part of. At first, I was just thinking that it was just a normal booking that was going to be, just recorded and everything. And I was just going to have one match, but
another kind of Pandemic era kind of taping, but it was something a little different than that.
Yeah, it was. And man, I'll tell you, like I said, when I got there, I thought it was just going to be some studio style shooting of wrestling. And, I'm starting to look, and here I see Brian Cage getting, his prostheses attached to his face. There's this guy running around in a jumpsuit. And then I see my old friend Leon. And then the guy with the jumpsuit keeps jumping around. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then the guy in the jumpsuit was Luke Roberts, the mastermind of this whole thing. He starts telling me, yeah, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm Mercury. I'm the guy, and he goes, oh, what's up, man? How you doing? And we instantly hit it off. Really good energy. He definitely started.
Yeah, Luke's a cool guy. I mean, I'm from the Northeast. Like I said, I'm from Mass, so I've seen a lot of, I watch a lot of wrestling, obviously in Mass. I've been out to Jersey. I've gotten, down to Jersey. I've seen, Wrestlers Laboratory, a bunch of the Ridgefield shows. I've been as far as all the way to the H2O Center on the edge there. We did the IWTV 100. And then, the next favorite place I like to watch wrestling is Maine. Love Limitless and all the other promotions. Larry Huntley, he has a promotion out there. And I've, been a big fan of Luke Robert and, seen him on the independent scene, in the tag team division, with Paul. And, I remember seeing him in also like Chaotic Wrestling. And the guy just dazzled me. Like he was doing moves that I've just never seen. Like I remember one spot, he like ran, like hopped on two dudes' backs, did like a backflip off the wall, and then like landed back onto the ground. I was like, who is this guy? Like, and and should be known, his partner got injured and things happen. But then all of a sudden I started seeing, kind of little blips and blurps of this Kill City. And I'm like, okay, this is definitely different. I love different. Like, some of my favorite shows have been different. Fear the Gay Agenda, some of these other shows that don't even take, place in a wrestling ring. They take place in halls and stuff. Some of the shows that came out in like 21 that just, like I said, like No Peace Underground put out. I like that kind of feel to it. So I started seeing something. I'm like, wow, this is good. So then I watched them. Like, wow, I was mind blown. I mean, I've watched it probably now like 15, maybe 16 times in total because it is such just like one of my favorite, not just wrestling shows, but like a favorite movie. It's more than just like, your local pay-per-view or a tape like that. I can only maybe watch like 2 or 3 times. This is something that's like, it's like my favorite movie. I kind of watch it, like maybe once a week. Cause like sometimes I pick up different things. I pick up things that weren't there prior, like I said, I'm just paying attention to different aspects because there is a lot to take in between all the characters and what's going on. It's something totally different that I don't think the world has ever seen in the wrestling industry, honestly.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique product. I've used that time and time again when talking with Luke is about how unique it was and what a vibe it definitely had. And when we were working through and putting it together, oh man, it was just out of this world. And then really being able to meet and talk with Matt Seidel, Chris Silvio, both of them as well. They were part of the project. My match with Natalia, the zip-faced monk.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I was actually watching that with my kid. I was actually watching that with my kid today. He just turned 5, so now I let him watch a little bit more wrestling because now he understands that he doesn't have to actually beat me up. But but yeah, I was watching that match today, and he was like, "Oh, who are these guys?" And I was like, "I'm gonna be talking to one of his ladies." Like, "You're gonna go there?" I'm like, "Maybe." He's like, "Oh, be careful! It does not look safe in Kill City." I'm like, "No, it's not." But yeah, I was watching that match earlier, and just like like I said, just the characters coming out, the way they come out, everybody's vibe, the lighting, just down to the lighting and the way the shadows are playing. It's very cinematic, but also good wrestling. Yeah. Sometimes you'll get a show that'll have bad wrestling, but good cinematics to kind of hide the bad wrestling. Yes. Other shows you'll have really good wrestling, but really bad storylines or everything. So it's almost just like a technical show. This is just a beautiful merge of both. It's just almost perfect. I mean, yes. Between the cast and like I said, just everything, the way the shots are done. I'm big into cinematography as well. And like just the way some of the shots were done and just, the videography in it is just amazing. It stuns me. It especially stuns me because it's part of also a wrestling show. It's not just like some, independent horror film that was filmed, by a couple of college kids. It's actually, a functional independent pro wrestling promotion that is a movie that, serves multiple purposes.
Yeah.
So, that took place down there. Now, I don't know. I've heard rumors perhaps they're going to be doing some more work with that. Anything about that?
I know Luke Roberts has been in the kitchen cooking. He's been putting things together left and right. As for him physically putting out any type of a script or anything that I am not aware of. But if he is cooking something, I really hope that I'm able to bring the David Mercury character, or Dr. Mercury, back into this movie and be a part of it.
And now tell me about Dr. Mercury. I want to know more about Dr. Mercury. You know, I'm a big character, but I like to see these dark characters come to life in screen. Is this somebody that you normally wrestle as when you wrestle, or was it someone that you specifically brought to Kill City?
Okay, so the Doctor himself, that is the entity of what Kill City, had going with the script. Normally on the independent level, my character goes by the technical alchemist, David Mercury. And I do don the lab coat, and I have the glasses, and I do have a variety of masks. I don't just have the one that I use for Kill City. I have a couple of other ones that I swap around with, but I don't wrestle in the lab coat. That thing is hot as hell. And that lab coat that I had in that movie, I actually, after filming that movie, I retired it. I now have that lab coat in one of my in my closet with my other ones that I have. But yeah, I don't
Now
wrestle.
a movie prop. That's memorabilia movie prop now.
Exactly. And I do like I'm big into cinematics as well. And now being able to have, those the mask that I had in that movie with those goggles and the lab coat with the video and everything, kind of retired in a glass display case. I'm actually, that I'm proud of that. But yeah, so with my character, the technical alchemist, throughout wrestling, I've always been a good technical wrestler. And now I tell a story as I'm looking for, the next brave participant, you know what I mean, who can outlast my experiment. And normally when I wrestle, I'll either, pick a body part and work it, break it down scientifically, and explaining what I'm doing to the audience as I'm wrestling the guys. And normally when it comes to beating my opponents, I normally get them with some type of a unique pin that goes with the body part that I'm working. So you can see it all put together. And normally those pins, they come out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It'll be a counter or something for what another wrestler does. My character pretty much is using science to play chess and to determine his outcome using his scientific wrestling.
I like that. Because I did grow up in an era where, there was, a lot, yes, big guys wrestling, but there was also, these technical guys like Bob Backlund and other just great, technical wrestlers that would get out there, even like, and a very underrated one is Greg Valentine. He would go out there and just tear, his opponent's knees apart until he could stick the figure four on them and make them tap. He wasn't the most exciting wrestler to watch, but if you watched him, he was a super technical wrestler, and he was very solid and very sound. Yes. Things like that is also what I grew up with, not just, the big, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, and Warrior, running wild. I also liked, because I am a fan of the bad guys of wrestling or the heels, I ended up watching a lot of different guys a lot of people didn't pay attention to because they, were always rooting for them to lose. This gave me the kind of experience to kind of, get different angles on, how characters work in the wrestling world and how, what their kind of, moves are. I do like that, and there isn't a lot of technical. I see a lot of, on the indie scene today, a lot of people trying to, now, go back to almost some of the, not so much the danger of, the hardcoreness, but the jumps, the stunts. They want to do flips. They want to get back into that, they want to show their athleticism off. They've, gotten into athlete shape, so they want to show it off. So it's a lot of athleticism and a lot of the wrestling, the core wrestling is kind of like, oh, it's kind of disappeared. Now you're seeing a whole different moveset. So it's good to see people still using that, original kind of, mindset of, well, I'm going to work this body part until I can wear him down, telling that story, it for me, it makes it more realistic. Because again, coming from a boxing world, that's what you would do. This guy's got a week, whatever. So you would be, working that side until he finally just caves and falls, and that's kind of, what your character is doing. So to me, that's the more realistic style. So it makes it more entertaining for me.
Yeah, and that's what I try to bring a little bit of that old school kind of vibe, but I do from time to time throw in some high impact maneuvers, and if I'm feeling froggy, I have been known to do stuff off the top and
of course,
on the outside. But it always depends on what type of opponent that I have in front of me that marks for those occasions.
Yeah, definitely. Some things just look better against certain, types of people rather than, everybody. So you work the Kill City Cup, and obviously it's gaining momentum, and I think basically that's what kind of is going on now while he's cooking. It's just gaining momentum. It's getting noticed. You guys are also on IMDb, which is great. Part of the movie world actors. But that can't be the last time you've wrestled. You must be getting into something now, right?
Oh, well, speaking of upcoming shows, next Saturday I will be in Sanford, Maine, doing a show for Supernova Wrestling. They're presenting their event called Feeding Frenzy, and I'll be taking part in a triple threat. I'll be taking on the Blade Bandit and I think he goes by the Super Icon Tony Clash. And I'm looking forward to this because I coming up and working for Supernova. I've been coming up for them now. This will be my third event with them. Meeting some of those guys up there, I'm starting to take to them, and we communicate even when I'm not up there, and trying to help them out with anything they may need. Whether it's critiquing with wrestling or anything like that. But it's next Saturday, August 19th in Sanford, Maine. I'll definitely shoot you the
definitely shoot me all the info. If you have, I don't know if you have a pro wrestling tees, if you sell merch, if you got any of those kind of links, any links you got, send them my way. I'm going to put them all into, the info about this. So everybody can just, grab the merch, grab stuff, see where you're wrestling kind of, I like to really promote the people I bring on the show and, get them noticed outside of my area. Cause sometimes, it's not just about the locals now, things are getting streamed more and more, and independent wrestling is getting out more and more. You got lovely platforms like IWTV to, the whole country can see you wrestle. And then you got YouTube as another great asset now that's being used for wrestling, where shows are being broadcasted, some, even live. And that's great because not everybody, it doesn't take them, all the money that it used to take to kind of get your product out there. It used to take a lot to get all this crew and this. Now, if you're just a little bit tech savvy and you can get some internet equipment, you can get it out there pretty easily and decent. Yeah. And the turnaround times to get these things out is much quicker. I used to see them, take months later to see the product. Now, it's a couple of days and the event's up somewhere, which is wonderful. It's wonderful. I'm a big, like I said, I've gotten back into wrestling, full steam, I had back in like 2017. And, it was through an indie promotion around here called NCW. I saw a bunch of, great, young, talented people. And it just kind of sparked my passion to get back into it. Again, I fell in love more with the characters. I saw these fun characters that were just, you had, mad scientists and, superheroes and just all these just kind of, just fun people. And the great part about the indie scene for me is it's very tangible. You can go and, I saw that guy wrestle. Most likely, he's going to be an intermission, and I can go and shake his hand. I can say, hey, what's up? I can get a picture from my profile. And, that's what kind of got me into all this. I saw these things were tangible. And, when 2020 hit, everything kind of just came to a dead halt. Wrestling was dead, I don't know how you weathered, if you had bookings, but, everybody that had them up this area, in mass got shut down.
Yep.
You know, we didn't have pro wrestling. It wasn't for 2020, and when it hit, they shut everything down, and then we started to see some tapings come out of like Beyond Wrestling, Limitless Wrestling, and stuff the following year in 21, early in 21. People with schools were able to start doing private tapings and stuff. So we had a whole lot of time without wrestling, and I started this idea, let's get talking to a lot of the guys, let's get eyes and ears on the product, and when this thing comes back, let's make these scenes really big. And it was, those first shows back were amazing. The fans coming back into it was just great. And everybody was just wild about just being back with, live fan wrestling. I never really superly got back into the mainstream wrestling, although I do like WWE for its heritage, and it's, I watch TV, and check it out. I like Roman Reigns, and I like a lot of the, but for me, it's a lot of the heritage. I like AEW. I think it's fun, but the most exciting thing for me about mainstream wrestling now is seeing who's going to be on these shows, and who I just saw, last week in the indie scene. Because a lot of people in the Northeast be moving very fast to get on these shows. AEW, WWE, where they're picking people up left and right. And I'm sure, down in Florida, it's the same thing, especially being so close to NXT and all that. You get these guys that just can get on shows because they're so local and they're working, and it's great to see it. It's great to see people that, you see one day in a, VSW hall on TV the next.
Oh yeah, man. It's definitely come back full force, man. And I'm watching the next generation getting turned out and going out there and making wrestling fantastic. Like it's really great time to be a part of the industry now. I mean, I wish I can get back 10 years just so I could ride another 10 years to see where it goes from here. Because man, it definitely went full circle from when I started it was the Valley of the Big Men, and then slowly but surely things started to turn around, and then boom, like you said, we got hit with COVID, and parts of the country there was no wrestling. Ring of Honor was still around because they were doing the bubble, and they were having guys in there. And during that time, it was really something, because just before COVID hit, I started coaching and training alongside Jay Lethal, and he was running his school at the time called the Lethal Academy, and we got in it together, started working, and then COVID hit, and everything came to a halt. But after they started opening things up, and we were able to take our one facility and kind of have another one, so that way we didn't have so many people in one spot, and you know what I mean, everything was still spread around because they were cracking on the whole COVID thing.
Yeah, having too many people in one spot was an issue, so you had to have, you could spread it out, less is better.
And we had to be careful. Jay himself had to be careful because him having to go into the bubble, he couldn't risk catching anything. So it was a time where we really had to play our cards right and play them well, so that way he was still able to go out there and perform, and even having opportunities myself of going and doing some. It's actually how I got my first opportunity in Boston with Supernova, was when he brought me into one of his events that he did do in a wrestling school, where it was that was it. It was just what he recorded, and the wrestlers, and we all kind of had to be spread out a little bit. It was quite interesting then, but
it was a very scary time, though, because I mean, to be honest, I was kind of nervous for a lot of people, because at the time, at first, nobody really knew what we were getting into. People didn't know if this would be a week, a month, whatever. But as the months went on, and then you start seeing, the posts, and you start seeing, things happen. You start getting scared. A lot of promotions, didn't come back. A lot of people still haven't come back, to wrestle. I know people that retired.
Myself.
In 2020, they retired or just have kind of disappeared off the scene and never really came back. And So it was kind of a scary part too, because while it was cool because, granted, I'll say for myself, I became kind of friendly with a lot of the wrestlers, personally in a way. So on social media. So when they were in 2020, when a lot of them were home, a lot of them were just hanging around. So you could talk to a lot of your favorite wrestlers and kind of chill out, and everybody was kind of chill. But at the same point, you were kind of nervous. These guys, you ever gonna see them again? There's a lot of uncertainty with it. But when I started to, I saw the first tapings, and I started seeing, Rosses and people and more people getting involved, and more of my favorite superstars coming back into it. I'm like, okay, this is better sign, a good sign. It is good, but going back looking at it now, it was very kind of scary when it did hit, because like you said, you had to play your cards very right, or especially in the early days, nobody wanted to get sick. The illnesses were a lot different than they are now. It was a lot more severe. Me and my family caught it early on, kind of, and we were out of commission for almost 3 weeks. And that might be not a long time, but for an athlete that is working every weekend or whatever, it's a long time to be out, especially with when you can't go to the gym, you can't keep up with your physical fit. It was a very scary time. Yeah, and even the people that weren't doing that, they weren't getting gym time. They weren't, the biggest problem out here is nobody was getting ring time. Nobody could even get, to run the ropes even, unless you owned a ring. And a few people do, and they threw them in their backyard. They could do it, but unless you owned a ring or the schools, it wasn't happening. I'm sure there was underground shows, and we heard rumors of people running shows that they shouldn't have been running. But for the most part, yeah, it was crazy. People were running like bootleg shows. But now I'll never forget. I went to one show during when everything came back. It was all the way in New York. I ended up going to one of MV Young shows, and he was trying to run some like Woodstock show, and he had it in the backyard. And all of a sudden, like everything was going fine. He had ring, music, everything. And then cops came, everything got shut down. Everybody had to go home like it was over. And all the talent had to go home.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. And I felt so bad for the guy because A, he had to refund talent. B, he had to refund his sponsors. Like, because I was, at this time I was sponsoring a lot of the promotions because, that was my way of kind of helping them get on their feet. So I was sponsoring a lot of the promotion, 50 here, 100 here. He had to pay back sponsors. Like, plus he had to deal with, getting some of the transport back. It was nuts. But, like I said, I did travel a lot during that 21 year to see a lot of that Jersey wrestling. Even got out to GCW a little bit and then all the way up to Maine. We went to New York too. We went to the rebirth of XPW. That was interesting. Different things like that. I like different wrestling. Although I like, the regular run of the mill, when I see different shows, the shows that are different, it really piques my interest more because it's just showing, that wrestling doesn't just have to be this one way. It can be, a creative way. There was shows during the pandemic era I saw that like had no commentary, for instance, but combined, like Mozart with pro wrestling. Beautifully cinematically done, and it was just, amazing. I forget the promotion, but there was a lot of creativity that came out of 2020. And, and that's kind of, what when I saw Killer Cup, I was like, ooh, this is a taping. That's nice. But I haven't seen a taping like this in, since that 2020 era, since that pandemic era, because, now once live shows, who's going to waste time on tapings? Everybody was bitching about the tapings that, it took a whole day. You had to get everybody together. They liked running live shows more. So when I saw the tape, I was like, ooh, this is nice taping. And then when I realized, wow, this is more than just a tape. It's a full movie. This is a whole story told in, an hour's time through the art of pro wrestling. And, again, that's what, kind of sparked me again with the Kill Cup. Because, for a while, I was kind of stale on pro wrestling, too, just because the independent scene was kind of just very stagnant. Everything kind of the same. You see the same guy. If you go enough and a lot and often or watch often, you'll see the same guys very often. So when I saw, the roster for Kill City come, I seen that, it's not the local roster. I'm like, wow. But, then you see names like Brian Cage and, not for nothing, but it's like
Jimmy Jacobs. They had Natalia Mikolovich from NWA. Like, he just had such an array of talent. That
But
was
like my wife, she doesn't really like pro wrestling at all. She doesn't really. She used to when she was like a kid, but if there's one person she marks out for, she owns like 5 shirts. Is Brian Cage? She loves Brian Cage. She follows his Instagram, follows all stuff. So when she heard Brian Cage's name be dropped, she even watched Kill City Cup, and she doesn't. Really, I can't get her to watch anything. So I mean, like, so I'm saying like there's something in it for everybody. Whether you're a wrestling fan, a horror fan, movie fan, something for everyone. Like I said, it's just a lot of it's a lot of fun in seeing that. And like you said, when you were obviously, in that 2020 era, what was I would like to say, what was your like number one obstacle? Did you find any obstacles getting back from the pandemic, like coming back into the industry?
Oh wow. Oof. Oh man. I mean, where do I begin? One of, I mean, besides doing, the wrestling and when COVID hit at the time too, my everyday job, I worked at a gym. So that kind of, I got hit hard during COVID, man. It really sucked. I was doing a lot of outdoor stuff, just trying to stay afloat, man. But once they opened up the floodgate, and they were letting these live shows happen again, I was able to gain some real good steam and just start getting shows left and right. I was very, very fortunate that, with the network that I have here in Florida and the people that I know, it was, I won't say that it was easy, but it wasn't as hard as most. So I would have to say I'm very grateful for a lot of the relationships that I have built in the last 21 years wrestling here in Florida and making the name for myself that I have, because once people started running shows again, it was kind of easy just to get back into it.
Get those bookings and get where you had to be, and everybody was like, "Oh, hey, we know him. He's real live. Let's get him on. Let's get him on. Let's get him on."
Yes. I was very fortunate for that. And then to top it off, it was good to still have a little content to promote for myself when I had the opportunity to go to Boston and do that closed show. And it was something, man. But like I said, I was very fortunate with the people that I know in this industry, that when things came up, that they kept me in mind. That's what I was real happy about.
Well, that's great. And, it also speaks, a lot about you and yourself as, a human person in the industry. Because, this industry can be, a very cutthroat industry. It can be very dark. I look at the dark side of the ring. It is a very, not for nothing. It started in a carny, and, some of it can still be very carny. But there is loyalty in it. And when you are a good person, it does shine. It does show through. So that's good to see. And it's good to hear, because not everybody does get those breaks. I mean, like I said, some people I saw never came back from the pandemic, which was sad. And I still don't know where they are today. And I mean, I'm hopefully, I wish them the best. I don't know if they got, sick. I don't know if they just changed their heart, or some people just got scared to come back. Some people didn't want to get sick. Some people still don't want to get sick. It really changed a lot of people's outlooks on life. But, I'm glad to see that, you were able to bounce back with somewhat of ease, and, get to where you are today, make it to Kill City Cup, continue to go to Maine, to Supernova and all these, great places that you're going to be doing soon. And, it's a very exciting time, like you said, for pro wrestling. It can go in many directions, and it's just kind of a ride that we all got to kind of sit and watch. Whether, you're podcasting, whether you're in the game, whether you're, just a plain old fan of just watching it on TV. There's so much, change, like you said, from that big man era to what it is today, just from character involvement to social involvement to what wrestling even is to some people. It's to some people, it's not wrestling. It's an art. It's a form. It's a way to tell a story. It's, another way, like singing a song. No, I don't sing. I'm not a rapper. I'm a wrestler. I do my storytelling through my character and my, in-ring work. There's so many different aspects of pro wrestling now that just weren't there in the past. And it's great to get, these kind of, shows like Kill City and and other great, just creative ideas, in the public, and be seen and show that, wrestling has something almost for everybody. It really does.
Yep.
But I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come in on the show. I really appreciate it. And like I said, we're going to put all those links of where people can find you. But if you want to go tell them now, if you have social media links, ramble them up, tell them where to find you, like on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever.
Awesome. Well, majority of my handles all start with The Technical Alchemist. DM for Twitter. For Instagram, it's David Mercury, and also with Facebook, it's David Mercury as well. And you can go on and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's also, you can find me at The Technical Alchemist. And if you are in the Maine area, in Sanford, Maine, please come check me out at Supernova Wrestling when they present Feeding Frenzy. And then on Sunday, August 20th, you will find me back in Florida. I'll be in Palmetto, where I'll be wrestling for Universal Championship Wrestling when they present Battlestar. And it's only there where you can behold my technical alchemy is upon you, because there is no escape for the brilliance that awaits. Thank you very much.
Can't wait.
Thank you very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. And hopefully with Luke Roberts, he's going ahead and he finishes up something so we can have ourselves a Kill City Cup 2. And hopefully the Dr. David Mercury will be a part of that special project. Thank you again for having me, my man.
Can't wait. Have yourself a great night.
You too, my man. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody at home, for watching. I hope you two have a great weekend. Versace Stoner out.